हेलो बच्चों, आज हम बहुत एक इंटरेस्टिंग डॉक्टर से बात करने वाले हैं जिनकी हम जर्नी के बारे में बात करेंगे एंड ही विल आंसर सम क्वेश्चंस दैट यू गाइज हैव आस्क्ड ऑफ अस एंड मोस्ट ऑफ ऑल अब बिकॉज रिजल्ट्स आ चुके हैं और हमें समझना है कि डॉक्टर बनने के बाद लाइफ कैसी होती है, इसलिए अब से हम डॉक्टर्स को इंटरव्यू करेंगे और आपको उनकी जर्नी जो रही है उसके बारे में आपसे बात करेंगे। तो आज हमारे साथ हैं Dr. Sahil Sheikh. Dr. Sahil Sheikh has been practicing medicine for the past 10 years and has evolved from a physician to a general physician to a gastroenterologist today. So, introducing Dr. Sahil, let's start off with the questions. So, Dr. Sahil, can you tell me a little bit more about your background first and just walk us through your journey?
I belong to a small city, so I did my 10th, 12th in a small city named Soaham in Rajasthan. Then I got through my PMT, that is nowadays called Neet, and I got into SMS Jaipur. Finished my 6 years of basic MBBS from Jaipur. Then further, as for specialization, my preferred branch was medicine, so I did my internal medicine MD from Delhi, Maulana Azad Medical College. And during that time, I had to decide what super specialty I wanted to do, because as we are progressing day by day, it's the era is for super specialization, because everybody wants to get to the doctor who is specific for his own disease. So that's why then I did my DM Gastro from Mumbai Tata, and after that I was working in Mumbai for 2-3 years as an assistant professor in KEM and Tata Hospital, and now currently I'm working as a consultant gastroenterologist in a corporate hospital in Jodhpur.
So you've had quite an incredible journey. Now could you walk me through what inspired you to pick up this as a specialty? Gastroenterologist, I've personally not heard of a lot of gastroenterologists, so
Yeah.
What made you pick up this as a specialty?
So I would be lying if I say that when I entered MBBS I knew what a gastroenterologist is and I wanted to become a gastroenterologist. So as we go along, and nowadays so it's easier for people to Google stuff and just know what a doctor does. So as I did my medical journey, so the only thing first I knew when I was in MBBS that I wanted to be a physician. I was not didn't want to be, so broadly you can divide it into physician and a surgeon, a person who operates and a person who mainly sees patients in the OPD. So I wanted to be a physician. So when I was doing my MD medicine from Delhi, so I was lucky to be under my guide was a gastroenterologist, and he was one of the first gastroenterologists in India. So he was among the first batch from AIIMS Delhi who did his gastroenterology specialization. So we were all inspired by him, and during when I was completing my MD in medicine, I was inspired to become a gastroenterologist. I saw what the daily working of a gastroenterologist is. So then that made me choose this career as a profession.
I see. So it was a mixture of mentorship and guidance as a role model essentially you saw in your college, which made you want to pick this field. That's
that's the thing, because once you see, because it's very tough to decide your career if you have not seen it in front of you, because it's very easy to say I want to become this, I want to become this, but once you see it in front of you, you know what the job entails, what you have got to do, and you see your seniors also sometimes that how they are doing in their life as well in professional as well as personal front. Then you take a conscious decision to get to that.
Right, absolutely fair. So this was going to be my next question, ki while you were experiencing this lifestyle with your role model, your mentor, what was their typical lifestyle like? Like what does the typical lifestyle of a gastroenterologist look like?
So the best thing about this field is you are just not a physician, you also work in an OT. I mean to say, so when we describe ourselves as our job as, so it is mainly related to all the gastric and liver problems. Also we are handling endoscopies. So endoscopies is a very important part of gastroenterology. So in this, to simplify it, it's basically we can visualize the internal body organs through using flexible endoscopes, and that gives us an edge over other people because we can be inside the body and find the disease. Also, at the same time, sometimes we can cure it also. So that's why it's a branch that gives you best of both worlds. You are a physician as well as surgeon. So you are like a amalgamation of both physician and surgeon. So that's what made me gravitate towards this field.
Fair enough. So it seems like it's more of a generalist role and it's more interesting because of that, right?
Yeah.
Understandable. So in terms of the challenges that you face on a daily basis, what is the most challenging aspect of becoming a gastroenterologist, for example?
Once you become a gastroenterologist, so it's a super specialization. So once you are a gastroenterologist and a patient comes to you, it does not come directly. It comes through multiple levels of referrals, and many doctors have tried treatment for him, and they might have failed or the patient is not suited. Then the patient is referred to you. So your responsibility is much higher because the patient comes with lots of hope to you because he has already taken a lot of medicines from his general village doctor. Then he comes to a district doctor, and we as a doctor sit at the tertiary level. So we are at the highest level. So we don't we have to manage the patient correctly because we don't have anyone we can refer into a higher center. So we have to do what is needed for the patient. So that's why the responsibility is more because the patients come from all strata of society, and they come with lots of hope because they have been treated for the same ailment at many small places but might not have been corrected. So your responsibility is more because you have to give him a proper solution for his problem.
Right. So it seems like the patients that come to you come with certain expectations as well, and obviously the varieties of medical problems are it's quite all over the place, to be honest. So within that, how do you handle the difficult cases or difficult situations that arise? How do you prepare mentally for that? Because I can understand it's quite stressful as well, right?
Yeah.
So how do you prepare for that?
Because this job also entails handling a lot of emergencies because patients come with, because as we are endoscopists, so we have to handle all these emergencies as well that have to be sometimes tackled endoscopically. It's not just medicine. So sometimes we have to go, if there's some bleeding, we have to stop it because the life and death of a patient depends on whether we can control it through our skill, because it's a skill. It's not something just you can read in a book, because you have to hone your skill, your procedures through multiple years of experience. So it's a little stressful because once you know if you do this procedure correctly, the patient might live, and if not, then that's the difference between life and death. So it's a little stressful, but luckily I have been trained at a very high volume centers. So it comes that just like you don't have to think too much about it. So that's a good thing when you train, because I always tell my juniors also, whatever work you do when you are training, so once you are trained well, then you can go in any part of the world and do best. But if you are not trained properly and you have doubts about your capability, then you will never be a good doctor. You'll always be second guessing yourself. So it's very necessary when you do your training, you do your best, because rest is, once you are trained and you are out, there will be nobody holding your hand.
Absolutely. That's such an important point, that a doctor has to have very clear focus and confidence in their own ability, essentially.
Yeah.
It's so true. So in terms of the qualities that one must possess, what are your thoughts on the qualities of a good doctor, essentially, or a successful gastroenterologist, essentially?
So I would take the first part of your question. So anyone who is thinking of becoming a gastroenterologist, it's very important he becomes a good doctor, because once you finish your MBBS, you are called a doctor. So as a doctor, you approach your patient as a doctor, not a gastroenterologist, not a super specialist. So you have to listen to his problems completely, what are his concerns, because patients come, as I said, they come from multiple levels of referrals. So they have a high level of expectation, and also they have very high anxiety along with the diseases, because the diseases are mostly long-term diseases in liver and gastroenterology. So that's why you have to be very calm with the patient. You should be assuring so that he knows that he has come to a right place. And sometimes it's very necessary that you have to also explain the prognosis to the patient, because sometimes a doctor cannot do everything. So even the emotional support that we have to provide, the empathy we have to give is very important. So that's why it's very important that you treat inform the patient of his disease, his family. You have to keep the family in loop also, because the patient does not come as an island. So he has the whole group with him. So you have to let them be informed of all the disease, what is the complications, what you're planning to do, what you plan to achieve. So that is very important, especially in this day and age, because everybody is a Google doctor now. So everybody researches and everything. So you have to have good command of your field, because if you are not, then you will be second guessing yourself as well as the patient also.
That's very true. So this was actually going to be my next question about how do you communicate with your patients effectively, and essentially in this era where they have exposure to Google, आप कोई भी प्रॉब्लम आ रही है आप तुरंत गूगल करो एंड यू सडनली गेट द रिजल्ट एंड देन डॉक्टर कुछ और बोल रहा है, इंटरनेट पे कुछ और लिखा है. सो हाउ डू यू एसेंशली मैनेज डिस्कसिंग दीज टॉपिक्स विद योर पेशेंट्स एंड हाउ डू यू एजुकेट देम ऑन दिस, and particularly how do you talk to them about sensitive topics more importantly? So what's your approach to that?
So as I said before, when you are treating a patient, the patient as well as the whole family has to be kept in loop. You cannot be just, because you have to spend time with the patient as well as the attendants who are with the patient. So what are your expectations, what are your expected time of treatment, and what are ultimately prognosis of the patient, that he will go home or there are high chances that he might not survive. So these are the things that you have to inform the patient beforehand, because if you don't communicate these might land you in legal troubles, as well as there is always, because once you are in a end branch, there are always going to be very sick patients that you are going to manage. They might come out, they might not come out, because medicine is not 100% always. So that's why it's very necessary to also, you have to be very sensitive to because it's an emotional subject. Life and death is an emotional subject. So you have to be very careful about when talking to the patient. Give them good time, also the attendants, because they are the ones you will be communicating more rather than the patient, because because once a patient is admitted, if he is sick, then every day there are 5 people coming to know his prognosis. So you have to be very patient with that. So that's why just keep everyone in loop. That's the main point. Keep it clear rather than just reassurances.
Fair enough. So effective communication and very clear guidance to not just the patient but their family entirely.
Family
is
is
very
well.
crucial. Agreed. So taking all of this into account, if you look back and think about your entire career in a way, how do you maintain your work-life balance, and essentially are there any strategies that you apply towards self-care practices that you find helpful? Because I understand being a doctor is a very stressful job, right? So what are some techniques that you apply for yourself?
So it's very necessary, especially where our audience has lots of budding doctors. So it's very necessary when you go into medicine, you should know it's going to be a long educational journey. If you want to be at the top and you want to achieve your potential, it's going to be a long journey. So one thing that I tell my juniors also, that you don't think your life will start after you complete your education. So as you go along in MBBS, I had a lot of fun in my MBBS, even my MD. So you have to, it's not like it's the end game. You finish your studies and you start your career. It should not be like that. Even in your MBBS, you should give time for your extracurricular activities, whatever you do, because you will have time, because life is never going to, it's not going to be a end point that when you finish your degrees, you're going to just do jobs. So you have to have time for your own extracurricular activities in MBBS, MD, DM. Otherwise, it's a long journey and it can become frustrating for a lot of people. So that's why once I finished my all degrees, I always had thought that I'll give time to my family as well as my other extracurricular activities. So it's up to you. The work-life balance is very important. Otherwise, you are going to be burnt out very soon. Because as you said, it's a stressful job, and if you start working, non-stop, you can work, but it will ultimately lead to burnout. So you have to give time to yourself, at least on the weekends, or maybe 2-3 hours per day, just for yourself, for your family and yourself.
So essentially, balance out between work.
Balance is very important in any job. I wouldn't say just for a doctor. For any job, work-life balance is very important, because you might be earning a lot of money, but if you are not giving time to your family or your other extracurricular activities, that money might not be of any use to you, because health as well as interpersonal relationships, you can't pay them with money. So it's very difficult to do that.
So speaking of money and balance, how much does a typical gastroenterologist earn? What is the average salary of gastroenterologist?
So it usually depends on where you work, but minimum you would be earning somewhere around 36 to 40 lakh per annum once you start, because you're a super specialist, and in small cities you might be earning more, and it is just the starting income. Then the sky is the limit. It depends on you, how much you want to work, how much you want to how much is your reach. So sky is the limit. So once you start, but in the starting point, you can easily get somewhere between. So just to simplify, around 2 to 3 lakhs per month is like the minimum. That is good enough for any metro city in India, I guess.
So this becomes a big motivation points for MBBS students essentially who are preparing right now, because it's a vision. You know, everyone wants to know कि हम आगे जाके अपने आप को कितना sustain कर सकते हैं, family को कितना sustain कर सकते हैं.
That's true, because anyone who says that money is not an criteria is mostly lying. So money is also very important, because the good thing about gastroenterology, it pays very well. It pays very well compared to other specialties, because it has got best of both worlds. You are doing procedures as well, and you are seeing patients as well. So that gives you a good advantage over other specialties.
So speaking of difficulty, I'll move on to something जो बच्चों को जानने में बहुत इंटरेस्ट है कि how difficult are the exams after you have finished your NEET UG. So essentially, if you go into a super specialty or moving into your career in medicine, and as you progress, there are different exams that you have to give. So how difficult are the exams as compared to NEET UG?
So on a scale of 1 to 10, I will rate them around 7, 8, 9. So they are very tough, because the competition is quite a lot, as you know. But once you have decided what you want to do, and you start planning for it, so you can get through it. But it sometimes takes time, but usually patience and hard work, you can usually achieve it, because there are 2 steps. Because once you get into MBBS, then you have to get into MD. So you have to give the NEET PG exam. Then once you finish that, then you have to give a NEET super specialty exam. So it's a little tough. I would not lie. It's a little tough. But slowly the seats are increasing. But as the seats are increasing, also the competition is increasing. So it's a little tough. But once you get into it, it is quite rewarding as a career.
Absolutely. So any student who's right now preparing for giving the NEET UG is preparing for the life that they will live as an MBBS aspirant, right? Or as an MBBS student. What would be your advice for someone who's preparing?
So right now, if someone, I would say not see too far, just see what is in front of you. So right now, if you're preparing for a NEET MBBS, you're for UG, so your whole focus should be on that. So maybe you can visualize yourself as a gastroenterologist or a cardiologist or whatever. What is your choice of branch? But still, you have to look what is in front of you and take it day by day. So if you take it day by day, you give time for your other activities also. You study also, because college is a time when you develop your personality. So I would say that rather than study all the time, you should give time for other things also. But so it's very enjoyable in the MBBS. So that's why right now just concentrate on getting into MBBS, and as you go along, you'll learn what is your choice of branch, because it's very tough to decide at this time. So you have to, as you go, whatever is your interest, because you become a doctor because you are interested in medicine, you are interested in biology. So that's why as you go, every person might have their own interests. So what if you love what you do, then you will not be worrying about it. So just find your own branch, your own niche, and whatever it is, just work for it.
That's very, very good advice, Dr. Sahil. Thank you for taking our time today. This ends this video that we've made for today. I would like to encourage कि बच्चों आपको जो क्वेश्चन है डॉक्टर साहिल के लिए प्लीज़ कमेंट बॉक्स में डालेगा, एंड we'll make sure that Dr. Sahil gives the response to each of your questions, and we can continue this conversation perhaps on our YouTube channel itself. So Dr. Sahil, thank you again for taking our time today, and we hope to see you again on NeetPrep.
Just a small note before we end. So I just wanted to tell, because just to the new aspirants, so if you got through this year, it's good. If you haven't got through or going to give, so don't be worried about it. Don't be too anxious, because it's a long journey. That's going to be highs and lows. But if you have decided what you want to do, I'm sure you'll achieve it. And once you become what you want to become, the feeling of that is something you won't regret working for. So that's why just best of luck and keep on working. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing your last notes, Dr. Sahil. And I'm sure that our kids will really benefit from your advice. So thank you again for taking our time.